Hey, welcome back to the Beyond Every Jersey episode. Is it three? I think it's three.
Yeah.
Yeah. So episode three, and the title of this jersey is well, it's not a fancy title. We talked about the yellow jersey on episode one. Episode two was more of a grayish type jersey, but we're going back to that Tour de France theme, and we're talking about the green jersey. And the green jersey is a jersey that Chad won at the Tour Romandy. And I feel this is a great choice. Just it's an incredible jersey to own for one. And it also tells a journeyman story that we talk about. It's, not winning the overall, but fighting for and earning a classification jersey. And it's something that's very different. It demonstrates a lot of tactical racing and consistency from stage to stage, and it also shows that success that comes in all different forms, not just from winning a race or getting an overall victory. So we'll get to Chad to that about that in just a second, but just going through what we plan on today, we're going to talk about in the coach's corner the value of long, slow distance training. Isn't it that time of the year?
Big time.
We just recently had two of our coaches lead rides. Chad doing a 10-act ride around South Mountain there in Phoenix. And then John helped lead a bicycle house gravel ride to Camp Verde. So we'll get into the details of that and what the benefits are of long, slow distance and some of the mistakes you can make. And then finally, we're going to talk about some upcoming races because, believe it or not, it's race season in Arizona. So let's get back to Chad. So Chad, what year was this? And tell us a little bit about the story.
Yeah, I had to go back and refresh my memory a little bit today because it's 15 years ago, or about 15 years ago, 2010. Tour Romandy. I was on BMC, so it was my second year with the team. First year was pretty solid, but then I ended up getting mono towards the end of 2009. I was coming back from that in 2010, and the first part of the season was a little rough for me. Didn't finish a couple races, but not bad overall. Still in the mix. Doing pretty high level races in Belgium that weren't quite my cup of tea. So went back to my home base in Lucca, and I'm like, I gotta make it happen. Like I gotta get back to my normal level before Tour of Romandy. So I went out and put in a pretty ridiculous week of training and then tapered into the race. And the training I put in wasn't necessarily optimal training. It's just kind of almost training out frustration because I just want to get better. So I was going out and riding pretty much like maximal sustainable pace for 4 to 5 hours every day for 5 or 6 days straight. So almost most amount of kilojoule expenditure every day for 5 or 6 days, which ended up being pretty good training for breakaway riding, which I did at Tour Romandy. Yeah, going to Tour Romandy is my first World Tour race, so I wanted to show up and perform. And first day was a prologue. I don't think I did very well. I'd have to go back and look at results, but time trials were never my strong suit, so I was probably way down there on results, and that always pumped me up. Coming back from a poor time trial result, I was always hungry and fired up the next day. Went out in the breakaway, and I think a breakaway of 3 or 4 riders, and I was pretty snappy. I wasn't like a full-on sprinter, but pretty good kick. So I was going for all the intermediate points and everything. At this race, Tour Romandy, they give all the sprint points in the stage and none at the finish. So it's kind of unique. So this jersey's more of like a breakaway jersey than a sprinter's jersey. And my team director told me that halfway through the stage. So I'm like, all right, if I get this next sprint point or intermediate sprint, I'll take the jersey. So got the jersey day one, just from the breakaway. And then I think the plan the next day was to have one of my teammates go on the break. And it was, just on and off attacking, rolling hills, hard race, hard start to the stage. And my teammates were doing a good job covering all the moves, getting someone in pretty much every move. But there's just one hill, and I saw this group of 5 or 6 going off, and I'm like, that's probably the move. And none of my teammates were there. I came from maybe 40th back, straight across, bridged maybe a 5 to 15 second gap, just solo, straight across, one move. So it was kind of lucky. But my legs were pretty fried from being in the break all day the day before. The first day I was in the break, stage 2, officially stage 1 because it's just prologue the first day. Timbo Pino was in the break. He's a pretty famous rider, just retired recently. He is strong, and I just point that out because later in this stage, after we got caught on stage 2, I was coming back through the field, and he's just like, "You're crazy, man, going in the break 2 days in a row." But yeah, it's all out there all day, 2 days in a row. Just going for the sprint points, full gas. Got the points jersey, and then going back and looking at the stages here. Then stage 3 was a time trial, so all I had to do was, finish the stage. Stage 4, I think pretty much every day at this race, it was just a pretty hard day. There's no flat days there, maybe one flat day. And even the flat day wasn't flat. It's Switzerland, rolling hills everywhere. Days. And then last day, it was rainy and on a circuit. And I just remember being fried, 2 days all day in the breakaway in a row. And I was definitely not eating enough, not feeling well. This is 15 years ago. And I was nowhere near, 100 plus grams of carbs they're doing nowadays. I was probably floating around 40 if I was lucky, because I was just focused on riding hard and not eating, as not executing proper fueling strategy in this race. So last day, completely fried, raining on a circuit, and I got dropped first climb, and I'm like, why is it so fast? And it was just really tight GC. Alejandro Valverde was going for the win overall, I believe. And he was hitting it so hard on the first climb, and I didn't realize he was really close to me on sprint points because he was going for these intermediate sprints to get the time bonus. And I think it was only a couple points difference between he and I at the finish overall in the points jersey, sprint jersey classification. But he's completely destroyed the field the first time up a massive climb on the circuit. Blew the field apart, and ended up only being, maybe 50 guys in the front split, and I definitely did not make that front split. But I was in a group of maybe 50 or 60, so I'm like, we got Gruppetto, I'm fine. All I have to do is make it to finish. I get this jersey. Well, we roll through, going into the second lap, everyone drops out. That's in the Gruppetto. I had maybe 4 teammates in there. They all drop out except one guy. So it's me and Simon Zahner. I'm like, where did everyone else go? They're like, I just dropped out. I'm like, oh, this sucks. So we had maybe 70K to go. And it's just he and I, Simon Zahner and myself. And we have to ride pretty hard because there's a time cut. I don't know what the time cut was. I think it's probably 12% or something because it's a pretty big mountain day. I'm like, all right, we got to ride pretty hard. And I'm fried already halfway through the day. But luckily, he nursed me through the stage, and we made it. I finished, I'm looking at results now, 29 minutes down on the winner on that day, who was Alejandro Valverde, in the pouring rain. And it was only a 3.5-hour stage.
Oh, boy.
On that day, but just made it to the finish, got the jersey, and I was proud of it to just finish it. And it was cool. I got to wear that jersey pretty much every day of the race. So Yeah, I'll show you the jersey. And this is pretty cool because it is the let me see if you get it. Is it
Blur. The death blur.
But it's the reverse zip. Yeah, you can't fully see it because of blur.
Reverse zip. Yeah,
But it is pretty cool.
it is pretty cool.
So yeah, that's my sprint jersey for not a sprinter at a World Tour race story.
So how
So awesome.
how many people were really battling it out? It was Alejandro and you and who else for the green jersey?
There is a handful of people kind of going for the breaks, but it was such a crapshoot, especially at that race with the starts being rolling and hard. It's I don't think any big names were really going for it. Timbo Pino was going for the mountains points, which I finished second in, but he took it by a long shot. And looking at results now, Dennis Minchoff was third in the mountains classification, so some big hitters there.
Nice. Winning that, did it have significant meaning, or did it help, you're coming out of this mono phase and things? Did that spur you on to any better results or mentally better or anything?
I was pumped. I got to be on the podium every day. So I was coming out of that race on a high, and that definitely rolled through the season. I don't think I had any super stellar results after that year. I'll have to go back and look. But I think it boded well. The team owner, Andy Reese, was from Switzerland. We had dinner with him one night during the race, and it's nice that they can say we've got a rider in New Jersey, while we're at the hotel at dinner and stuff. And I think they were happy, and I'm happy if the team's happy. So
yeah.
And do you use that experience ever, to inform your own riding or, anything with your athletes? How would you correlate those things?
How did it change you?
Now far removed from that experience. Yeah, I look back and there's so many lessons learned from my time as a pro. And one of the major ones is fueling. Fueling's come a long way from those days, but I did such a bad job at eating in some of those races, especially when I was in the breakaway and when you need it the most, So yeah, the fueling strategies, that's something I talk about with a lot with my athletes. Like going hard in the race is one piece of the puzzle, and maybe a little corner piece, and fueling is another huge piece of the puzzle that you can't neglect. So the fueling strategy, and then training, leading up to that, I could have trained a lot more effectively. Just overall as a pro. So lots of little lessons learned, but those are the two major ones. And tactically, finding those breakaways is tough. And I try to share that knowledge with my riders, but a lot of it's firsthand experience too. So, just racing and to gain that knowledge of when and where the breakaway might go. I talk about that with my athletes, looking at race profiles or if I've done the race, and I have a pretty good idea of where those breakaways might go.
Yeah, the cram training, it worked for you. It seemed like in this instance, but I think I've used that a few times. It's like, oh, I got to get this done today, but in the big picture, it probably doesn't help. It's more about consistency and those things.
Yeah, I think it worked for me only in that instance that, what I ended up doing in the race was very similar to what I ended up doing in training, but it wasn't optimal training.
Do you remember about how many kilojoules those stages were, or, on average?
I'd have to go back and look, looking at the times from them. Most of those stages are about 4 to 5 hours, I'd say. In that 3,000 plus kilojoule range. So I was definitely doing that, every ride. I was doing that a couple weeks out from that race.
Nice. So, and the reason I ask is, we're transitioning into the coach's corner and talking about long, slow distance rides. And, kilojoules is kind of the ultimate measure of how much work you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good way to measure, these long, slow distance rides. But, recently, like I mentioned before, Chad just did a Tenac, for 10X ride for athletes and anybody interested or whoever wants to come along, around South Mountain, which is a staple in the Phoenix area where you ride around South Mountain and then you have this optional climb up. And on Sundays, there's the what's it called, Chad? Silent Sunday?
Silent Sunday, yeah. So every Sunday, the main road up the mountain is closed until 10 a.m. And then the fourth Sunday of every month is closed all day to cars.
Yeah, so it's closed to cars. It gives cyclists and hikers a chance to, and runners to ride up the road without the worry of any vehicles. And then John helped lead a bicycle house gravel ride. Before we get into that, just long, slow distance, it's been around in cycling for a long time. It builds, building aerobic base and mitochondrial density, fat oxidation. A lot of things happen in these rides, and they are very hard to do, actually. It's one of the hardest rides that I've found myself and my athletes doing because you're going slow.
Mm-hmm.
But it's low stress. So, you're able to sustain this. You're able to do it day after day after day. And maybe not all of us can do, like Chad going out and doing that. Well, maybe he wasn't doing long, slow distance. Maybe he's doing fast distance long. But you're able to do it over and over and over because, you're not, there's not a lot of intensity behind that. And it does help create opportunities for mental resilience, these really long rides, and it provides a great opportunity for practicing any fueling strategies you may have that Chad kind of mentioned. So, Chad, do you want to kind of talk about the South Mountain ride?
Yeah, it was a pretty good turnout. We had about 8 riders, and we just rode, 2x2 around South Mountain. Is the old route I grew up doing, the Dominic's ride, which in Landis had a ride around there. It used to be 100 people, so it's kind of nostalgic for me to go out and do the route. But easy route to keep it easy. It's flat, pancake flat out there, so easy to keep it in that endurance range, that Zone 2 range. But then we went up South Mountain, and that was more threshold. But the majority of it was in that endurance Zone 2 pace. It's just quality time in zone.
Yeah, I think that's the first time I ever met you, or at least to my memory. You were probably 13 or 14, and we were with Dominic's doing that ride. I mean, that, like you said, that was a staple. That was a ride that everybody did, and it was pretty big at the time. I even remember I was heading to a race in Mexico, and we were doing some training prior to that, a stage race down there. And we went to Phoenix to kind of do some preparation work. And I think we did around the mountain 5 days in a row. That's all we did. Part of it was some heat training and, just some speed work, but it's flat. So it's easy to do, team rotations, if you're practicing some pace lining and things like that. But it's, I have a lot of memories on that ride for sure. Or Dominic, telling us, we had to ride Little Ring, especially in January, You had to stay in the little ring the whole day, even for the sprint, or you're on a fixie. Yeah, no, that's a big staple in the Phoenix area.
Remember when Chad's dad would follow him around the mountain in a Volvo, I think.
Yeah, on Sagwag.
Yeah.
John, how was your ride this past weekend? I want to say before you start in, I am very envious, and I was so close to driving down just to be able to participate in this ride.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. It's been awesome every time. It's the third year we've done it. We call it the Loves Ride because we ride from Bicycle House to the Loves truck stop at Cordes Junction, I-17. So it's a 94-mile ride. It's over 9,000 feet of climbing. And it's about 60-40 dirt to pavement. It was awesome. There was a lot of participation this year too. We had a big turnout, 23 or 24 people. We had two SAG pickups following with people's gear and their extra clothes and different things in there. Lots of food, lots of water, and it was good. We got super lucky because 2 days before it was raining on the course, so that whole area that it's the Bloody Basin Road and Seven Springs and all that stuff just got hammered. And so there was a guy that was going up and taking video in his 4-wheel drive because he lived close and decided that he was going to take videos for everybody and check it out. And to me, it didn't look super the kind of mud where your tires would sink all the way down and just stick to everything. So I felt pretty good about it. We have had enough moisture recently that it wasn't one of those just epic dumps that created a huge mess. So we actually made it through with very minimal mud accumulation on our bikes. So that made it even better because the weather was good. There wasn't a ton of wind. It wasn't super hot. It was just right. Even the muddy spots where we get a little slippery, and nobody crashed, and there was no big consequences with the bikes. So it was a spectacular day. My goal was to survive. I was sick all the way during Christmas for like 9 days. So I had a bunch of time off and had a chance to ride a few days beforehand. And so my goal was to just basically kind of reintroduce myself to riding and go and do it and kind of suffer through a little bit. But fortunately, I didn't suffer. The consistency paid off for me for the year, even though I've had a lot of ups and downs. The consistent work that I did for the year really kept me going through that, and also the right kind of fueling. Focusing on making sure there was always carbohydrate intake in, plenty of sodium, and also trying to avoid flavor fatigue. When you're out for doing something for 7 or 8 hours, you can get real tired of gels and things like that. So I brought along flaming hot Cheetos and stuff like that to be the antithesis of the gel.
So were there more mountain bikes?
Clean the palate.
Were there more mountain bikes or more gravel bikes for that particular route?
Well, we prefer mountain bikes. We call it more of a mountain bike ride than a gravel ride. And one of the reasons we thought it would be better that way is because of the potential for the mud. And the mountain bike is just a little easier to get around and with typically more clearance than a gravel bike for mud. But there was, I don't know, maybe 4 gravel bikes. And they all thought it was great except for the long descents. And going that direction, there's a surprising amount of descending, and it is rough out there. Bloody Basin Road itself is so bumpy. And so having full suspension, I was stoked. I've ridden mountain bike every time, and I'm always happy that I'm on it with climbing gears, and because there's some steep climbs too. I think there's some 15%, some 12%. There's some good climbing. So I don't know. I feel like it's good, and for Leadville, in my mind, it's sort of like sets the tone for Leadville. Like you could consider it a Leadville prep ride in a lot of ways. It's a long distance. There's a lot of climbing, and it's on kind of dirt road, so nothing technical. So it's really good. It's a really good way to dial in your kind of everything around Leadville prep.
So as we kind of put this into practical applications, I mean, for people out there, I mean, how slow is slow? I mean, what do you guys suggest athletes do these long, slow distance rides at?
I go by heart rate. I let that guide me. I'm like top of zone 2, maybe even middle of zone 2, and doing things to keep it down there. I'm all for the extra kilojoules and lower cadence work. Doing that, you can do so many different things on long, slow distance where you're trying to keep your heart rate down, and you can work on low cadence. You can work on some high cadence. And being smooth on the bike, you can work on pedal stroke. You can do so many different things to entertain, stay invigorated. But everybody's got a different number that they sit at that range. But I really feel like that the heart rate is the best way to guide.
I agree, because some people want to do it by wattage, but then in that type of long ride, then you start to get cardiac drift, and it may be harder to hold 200 watts 4 hours in than it was the first hour and a half. So yeah, if you're following what John was saying by heart rate, it's a lot easier to maintain a zone 2 style ride.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this is one of the biggest times that you're looking at heart rate. And and if you don't have a heart rate monitor or power meter, you can always go with your ability to talk. You should be able to hold a conversation easily. My test for athletes is always, if you can say the first sentence of the Pledge of Allegiance without taking a breath, then you're in the right place. If you have to stop and take a breath, then you may need to reevaluate how fast you're going or why you're going that fast. Sometimes, the course you pick, you have a 15% grade climb, zone 2 gets thrown out the window, pretty quickly, but you try to maintain as much as you can. And I do think when we are doing zone 2 training, you do need to look at the courses that you are riding a lot of times and making sure that, this is, I'm going to be able to accomplish this on this course. Or, a lot of riding we have here in Gunnison, well, maybe not right now, but typically, if we go to Hartman's, it's almost impossible to ride that. Just you get to these technical sections and, you cannot ride zone 2 of the technical section. Yeah. So,
I like to think about from the descents too, like how to optimize that 4 hours on the bike. And you're talking about kilojoules. If you're coasting half the ride, you're missing out on a lot of kilojoules because you're not pedaling. So it's like picking the route where you can be on the pedals the most amount of time, nailing that zone. So you're getting maximum kilojoules expenditure for that duration of time while you're in the zone.
Yeah, I think Mount Lemmon is a great example of that, because a lot of people are down in Tucson training this time of the year and they go up Mount Lemmon and they're trying to do these rides, and then you start to come down and you can coast. I mean, it's not really a coasting downhill per se, but you can also, challenge yourself to hold zone 2 on the downhill and, or do these other things like John's talking about. It's like, these are perfect rides to jump into the small details, whether it's belly breathing or how you're breathing or what you're thinking about or what your heart rate is and how can I control that a little bit more. Or one of the things on Mount Lemmon I would do is, can I ride on the white line? As far, because there's not a real bike lane coming down Mount Lemmon while there is one going up. And it's like, well, maybe I can just work on my bike handling and just try to stay right on this white line, all the way down. I mean, there are all these little games you can play and to keep your mind busy for these really long rides and enhance your performance.
Pedaling efficiency, that's the time. You don't have to think about a lot of other like intervals and time and watts and all the stuff. You can think about the actual skill of pedaling, how to pedal from your hips, use your hip flexors, keep your arms relaxed, keep your loose elbows, and engage your core, do all of the stuff that makes you a more efficient rider and that makes you go faster later, because it becomes like a muscle memory, and it's a habit, forming a habit of efficiency.
Yeah, I like that habit of efficiency.
And another important
I would do all those endurance rides with no music or anything, and my friends would think I was a psychopath. But it enabled me to work on all that stuff even more. Clear head, nothing else going on. I could just be in the moment, focusing on all those little things.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Jeff?
I was just going to say another key factor is finding, if you're going to ride in a group, finding a group that's willing to do that kind of riding. Because I know at my age now, that's the big thing. My zone 2 is really low, and I've got guys that they don't grasp it. It's tough, because you got to find a core group of people who are willing to just spend the day on the bike, and that's a hard ask sometimes.
Yep, it's the loneliest type of training.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they still do that, but Farewell does the shootout, or they don't do the shootout, but they kind of the ones that start it, and then they have the start times and everything. They used to have a Thursday ride that would go on the east side, and it was a zone 2 ride. And I remember going on that ride and going a little harder than zone 2, and the owner of Farewell, Ralph, coming up and talking to me and a couple other riders saying, hey, if you're going to do this, you go on a different ride, because this ride is zone 2. Well, he didn't call it zone 2 at that time, as this was a long time ago. But it's you got to find either the right course, the right group, or you just end up out there by yourself, and that can be a good thing. It's a perfect time to train all these things.
Right.
Totally. There's probably some other tools out there if you wanna invest in things like the TimeWire strap, so that you can know where your ventilatory thresholds are. You can probably do a little bit more work than what a heart rate monitor by itself will show. But again, that takes time and consistency to develop and work at. You can find ways to manipulate those zones to have a better effect on your goals later as well. But whatever you can work at, you still have to make sure you're recovering from as well. So all of that comes into play. So if you're doing just a little bit too much, you can kind of ruin your next phase.
For sure. And you have to watch all those things, or a coach is helping you watch for those things, because when you are doing these rides, you may not feel like you need to fuel yourself as much, because the intensity is so low. But when you're doing it day after day after day, you do have to keep on the fueling. And that's not only your carb intake, but your hydration, and not only during the ride. I mean, you're having to eat a lot during after those rides, because if you are doing 3,000 kilojoules, I mean, that's basically 3,000 calories plus whatever your resting calorie count is, or your resting metabolic rate. If it's typical like 1,200 or 1,500 a day, I mean, that's a lot of food. 4,500 calories a day is a lot of food.
Yeah.
So
it's not the ride to calorie restrict, not the long ride.
I always quantify everything in Chipotle burritos. So I've got a mental visual on how much I got to eat. That's a 7 burrito day.
Whoa.
That's a big
7
day.
burritos. Whoa. Tell me more about this 7 burrito day, Chad.
Well, I wouldn't eat that many, but 4,500 kilojoules. That's about 6 burritos.
Wow. Yeah, that's what we look at it.
Well, and you may ask, well, how long is, long, slow distance? Is it 7 burritos? Is it 1 burrito? What's most benefit to me? And, that can be all relative. It depends on what you're training for. I would say anywhere from 2 to 4+ hours, depending on your goals, because the way I look at it is, what is your ultimate goal, and then how many kilojoules does that take? And then I'd like to aim for those athletes to be able to do that many kilojoules in an aerobic arena or an aerobic standpoint versus a race. So, if you're like Chad was saying, doing those stages, there's between 3,000 and 4,000 kilojoules. Going out and do a 3,000 kilojoule ride at an aerobic pace.
Jason froze.
Yeah. It comes back
Must be
soon.
cold up there.
The internet froze.
Yep. The interwebs have frozen out. Come on, Jason. Come back to us.
He's probably, I don't know if he even realizes he's frozen. Might message him.
Oh, he's going to restart. Hopefully it still records. Cut this section out.
Recording, yeah, you could just clip this.
We're still recording, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The little red dot.
Got a red dot.
So is your next big long ride, is that a mountain bike or gravel?
Gravel. That one's definitely gravel, but it's a big climb over 4 peaks. I mean, it's 2 hours of climbing. It's so much climbing. And it gets steep too. So we're doing it on Friday to avoid some OHV traffic on the weekend. We'll do it super early, basically start at sunrise on Friday morning. And then by the time we get to the top and the 4 peaks, we're not too disrupted. It's the best way to go. Because on the climb up to the lake, you got to go around and do that big climb before you descend down to Tortilla Flats. People are starting to show up and be out hiking and doing stuff.
It's a nice route. I like 4 Peaks area.
It's a great route. The whole thing is really good. It's really nice to have that big group kind of stay together. Everybody drifts apart a little bit on the climbs, but for the most part, everybody's kind of together. Of course, everybody try to time the stop so that you're not spread out too far and with the cars.
Yeah,
kind of do it that way.
I've never gone up and over, just up to the top. I like to maybe. You guys are looping it, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. The pavement in and out of Tortilla Flats is a lot better now than it used to be.
Nice. Jason's back.
I'm back.
Unfroze.
My computer died.
Mine's getting a little low too.
Well, I don't know where y'all are at. How about, as we move on, do y'all have any, things that maybe destroy or, things that you want to avoid, on these long, slow distance ride, or common mistakes rather?
I mean, I think the biggest one for me in the past was always just going too hard. It's easy to go too hard. Especially once you start accumulating fitness, you feel good and you want to go hard, and it's easy to overdo it. But I think that's always my biggest mistake, train a little bit too hard.
See ya.
I agree. And under fueling and under hydrating, those are critical, especially the hydration. I mean, I don't know if one is worse than the other that much, but I would say hydration would be a primary concern since you're doing it a lot in the colder weather. You have to force yourself to drink more when it's not hot a lot of times, and you want to make sure you keep that fluids up.
Yeah, and I would, yes, definitely there's a lot of articles on how easily you dehydrate in cold weather, and actually sometimes more, because you're having to hydrate every one of those breaths in the colder weather, because it's just drier air. And I would add on to those, you see all these magazine articles about these quote unquote effective intervals, or, this HIIT training and all this stuff. And people decide that, they don't need the long, slow distance because they're going to do these more effective workouts. I mean, you got to really look at your goals. And if you're going to do an hour race or something, then maybe you never need to do long, slow distance. But if you're going to do a 3-hour race or 4, if you're going to do whiskey off road, or you're going to do a marathon mountain bike race, or a stage race, road stage race, or Leadville 100, you have to put in some time on the saddle. I mean, even just sitting in the saddle for that long, it's an adaptation. It's not something that you can do an hour and a half rides and then you're just going to, get out and do a 6-hour ride and have your best performance. I mean, you may finish it. John demonstrated that this weekend, but if you're looking to have your best performance, you definitely want to integrate these long, slow distance rides into your training.
Well, and I think the mental component, like John was mentioning, is huge too. Like, you're training your mind just as much as your body. Like Leadville, it's so mental. I think anything over 5 hours becomes exponentially more mental. So you got to put in the time to prepare your mind just as much as your body.
And we're not even mentioning like the social aspects. I mean, these rides build community, and I think a lot of us are very gregarious, and we don't just do these rides just for, I want to be this hermit and I'm riding my indoor trainer for 5 hours or anything. I like to go out in groups, and I like to talk with friends and sit at the coffee shop and have a donut afterwards or something like that. And so these type of group rides are perfect for, these long, slow distance rides. So it's, you want to take advantage. And one other thing, some of these are my favorite rides because I love to just go explore. I love to go look at a new route or a new dirt road or a new trail or something like that. And that takes a lot of stress off of, when I'm just going out and exploring, it takes a lot of stress off of, any intensity that I need to do. I'm just going to go out and ride.
Totally.
Well, our last little piece of this, is just, like I said in the beginning, it's race season in Arizona. So just kind of wanted to chat quickly about some upcoming races and, events. This weekend is the MBAA, which we spoke a lot about last week. It's their season opener, and it's at McDowell this weekend, which is, it's always been one of my favorites. It's lots of turning, not any long climbs. It's like riding on marbles. It's like little decomposed granite, so a lot of two-wheel drifts. And we'll have a lot of TENAC athletes out there, including a new team that we're working with, Shotgun Racing. And I think it does give, it's kind of that first opportunity, especially if you don't have any group rides around you, but that first opportunity to kind of test yourself and see where you're at. I don't know, do y'all remember any specific highlights of this course or anything like that?
I think some of the more entertaining stuff is, if you're doing the marathon, for instance, is the opportunity to come down Pemberton. And they're expecting rain down there on Thursday, so it could be optimal conditions for just really sailing down that trail, because it's just a lot of fun. Just total desert flow, saguaro cactuses around some of the corners, and just, and then you've got some of that kind of flow features in the tech loops and things like that. So that's always fun. And then I guess the cool thing about McDowell is the diversity, because if you get out on the backside of the marathon that the Cactus Cup touches on, you get those chunkier, what's kind of like more legacy desert trail riding. So yeah, it's a cool course.
Yeah, I always say out there, the faster you go, the more fun it is, and if you don't go fast, it can be a little bit boring. I think just because it's not a lot of technical features on most of the tracks, but as you get going faster, then those corners come up fast.
Yeah,
So,
and it was built by prison crews.
that's right.
I didn't know that.
I think you could race every weekend after this week. There are so many events in Arizona, and that's, I think that's why a lot of athletes travel down to Tucson and Phoenix to get some winter training in. I mean, there's McDowell Crit, there's San Manuel Crit coming up over the next few weeks that we have athletes at. But if we just talk kind of about the bigger ones, I'd say the Valley of the Sun stage race is a huge season opener, and I know, Chad, you've been to that race. I mean, what do you expect to see, or what does that race give you or give other riders an opportunity?
It's a nice season or early season opener for the road racers. Yeah, it gets a lot of quality riders out coming out here to Arizona. The pro field was super strong last year. I raced in it. It was fun to jump back in there. Yeah, the Pro 1-2 or Pro 1 field, I think it was 100 guys. I think it was pretty much filled up, and a lot of the other fields were really big too. And now I think it's part of the junior ID series or one of their series, so lots of junior turnout there too. But quality fields, and yeah, it's a great early season race to see where you stack up pretty much on a national level. If you're in the Cat 1, Cat 2 group. But it's definitely weighted towards the time trial specialist. There's a pretty good time trial, and then there's not a lot of separation in the road race unless there's some wind. So it suits the time trial specialist for sure.
Yeah, I would say that this is a race that kind of gives you an early season look at every event. It starts off with a time trial, very flat, and then a road race that's relatively flat. It does have a small uphill finish, and then a criterium. So you kind of get the three disciplines, and a good opportunity to test yourself, see where you're at. I have a ton of memories from this. I hated time trials. But this race, like Chad was saying, is very dependent on your time trial finish because it's super hard to get away in the other two events. Although, yeah, there's some wind. That road, I think it's 87, or the road when you turn, you're on the reservation there. That road can have some wind, and it's not a very big road, so it can split things up.
I did sneak off in a breakaway in the road race in 2016, and I got the stage win. But that was one of the few years that the breakaway stuck in the road race. And the crit's nice. I like the crit. It's a quality crit course downtown Phoenix.
Yeah, before I even raced, I went to that crit just to watch. I think Greg LeMond was in the race. I don't remember what course they do now, but at that time it's kind of like a figure eight almost. I mean, you didn't cross the course, but it's right in front of the state capitol, and it's a great finish. They moved it to Buckeye for several years, but they brought it back to downtown Phoenix, and it's a great venue. The other race that I had mentioned, or that I was thinking about, is the same weekend as Valley of the Sun, and it's the 24-hour race in the Old Pueblo, and this has been there forever. Not sure how many years. I'm sure over 20 years. And it's a mountain bike race, and maybe you don't see the pro fields that you may see at Valley of the Sun, from the mountain bike side, but you will have pros there. You know, Keegan Swenson broke the record a few years ago. And then who was that road rider or all-around gravel rider there for EF a couple years ago?
Lachlan Morton.
In the duo. And they're, you know, one of the biggest battles in that race is the corporate teams. And you'll have these local corporate teams that are battling each other, and they do it every year. And they'll bring in some hitters or hire some hitters to come in and do a few fast laps. So it's great fun. It's a big party. I mean, it basically becomes a city in the desert. I mean, they have street signs. Everybody's camping. You know, there's probably 2,000 to 3,000 people out there camping, and you can see the lights all the way from Oracle and probably north of Tucson and Catalina. But I'll be headed out there with the Western team. We went out there last year and had a great time. And you just camp out, do some fun laps in the desert, do some night laps. Hopefully it's not too cold or rainy, but it's always a good reason to travel down to Tucson or down to the desert. And, you know, maybe you only do a couple laps, but you have lots of opportunities to ride in that area or do some other things.
The big one.
Yeah, no, it's always a fan favorite. You know, you go out there, you do your lap, you go out there and you practice some laps throughout the year. It is, you know, even if it's not the race, it's a pretty fun place to ride. And for a 24-hour race, there's a lot of single track and a lot of cactus. You know, so you gotta, you know, it does have a unique challenge in 24-hour racing. I've been on some pretty boring race courses in the past. So, but yeah, as we start to wrap things up, I would encourage anybody out there, if you don't live in Arizona, or even if you do, you know, these are some great races to kind of get out to, even if it's just to watch and maybe just ride the courses. You can connect, you know, with your community or with some other TNAC athletes.
Awesome, good.
You know, if you're wanting to do the 24-hour race, you probably, I mean, you definitely missed the registration deadline. I mean, I think that thing sells out in a couple hours.
It's a good time of year to come to
Arizona. They start that in October.
Yeah.
But the other races,
sure
I'm sure you can get in Valley of the Sun or any of these other races.
Computer.
This has been
one of the rainiest days I ever spent.
Yeah. Any last words from anybody? I mean, do you have a recap, Chad, on your green jersey?
That wouldn't be fun.
All night.
Oh no, it's in the dark. That's rough.
Yeah, all night long in the rain, wearing raincoat and rain boots, rain pants, just soaked.
Everybody stalled. I'm sure that's me.
How did he do?
So
I don't even remember.
They're trying to reconnect me to the internet.
Yeah. It was Jake, or was it Adam? Which one was it? It was one of those two. I thought it was Jake.
I assume he's gonna come back.
Boy, it must have lost him for good, huh?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because
here he is.
Oh!
Yeah, he's back.
I'm back. Yeah, we got a storm rolling in here, Gunnison. So hopefully it brings us a little bit of snow.
Down the hatches.
I'm sorry. You know, just to recap a little bit, Chad, any words on the green jersey?
I mean, I don't know. I enjoyed breakaways, and that's what got it for me. So I think always looking for opportunities. You know, always looking for your opportunity with the green jersey.
I like that. You know, opportunity presents itself, and you got to take advantage, or you got to be prepared to take advantage. And it sounded like that couple weeks prior in Luca, you know, you started visualizing and getting yourself ready for that. As far as the long, slow distance, I would just say talking pace. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. You know, you should be able to say that without taking a breath. And, as we go to these other events, there are a ton of events. And if you're looking to get out of the cold, Arizona is a great place right now.
Absolutely.
But I don't really have a preview for next episode's Jersey. We'll try to make it in the next couple of weeks. Maybe we can look towards, maybe some races that we did in January, February. We'll come up with a good idea. In the meantime, you can find more information about Tenac at gotenac.com. Whether it's there or on social media, or if you have some coaching inquiries, you can reach us through there. So appreciate everybody taking a listen, and I think we're getting better. So appreciate you guys.
All
Just
right.
gotta charge that computer.